There are moments that don't just stay with you, they rewire you. Sloane stood by the sink, absently drying a glass, and without even glancing up, she said it. It's not my duty to fulfill your desires. No anger, no sarcasm, just fact. Like she was commenting on the weather. I remember the hum of the refrigerator, the faint tick of the wall clock behind me, and the sharp, clinical way her words cut through everything I thought I knew about our marriage. Something didn't break that night. It died. Quietly. Precisely. I watched her walk past me like I wasn't even there. And in that silence, something new was born in me. Not rage, not sadness. Clarity. We'd been married for 7 years, long enough to stop celebrating anniversaries with much enthusiasm, but not long enough to completely forget how we used to be. Somewhere along the way, though, our marriage turned into a performance I didn't realize I was the only one rehearsing for. At first, the signs were subtle. She stopped texting me back during the day, said she was just too busy. Date nights turned into her asking, "Can we just stay in tonight?" Hugs became one-armed side squeezes. Kisses became routine pecks. And intimacy? It became rationed, scheduled, if at all. When I tried to talk about it, she'd shrug and say, "It's not that deep, Reed." When I asked if she was okay, she'd reply, "I'm just tired." When I reached out, she recoiled. And still, I held on. Because that's what a husband does, right? He holds on. Until she looks him in the eye and tells him he's no longer her concern. That night, after her little declaration, I sat at the edge of our bed, staring at the floor. I wasn't devastated. I was done. Done hoping, done chasing, done giving someone first-class service while sitting in coach myself. Her words kept echoing, "It's not my duty." That was it, the framework, the rules of engagement. She just handed them to me like a blueprint, and I was going to build my life around them. The next morning, I didn't make her coffee. For 7 years, I had brought her coffee to the nightstand. Half a teaspoon of sugar, splash of oat milk, always in the brown mug with the little chip on the rim that she insisted made it charming. This time, I made 1 cup, for me. Sat at the table, scrolled the news. When she came down and saw me sipping alone, she blinked twice. "Where's mine?" she asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. I didn't even look up. "Oh," I said, "I didn't feel like making it." She paused. "Seriously?" "Very. I figured it's not my duty to fulfill your desires." She stared at me for a few seconds, confused, maybe even a little amused. Then she rolled her eyes and muttered, "Whatever," like I was just being petty. But I wasn't being petty. I was being precise. Because from that moment forward, I decided, no more volunteering for a partnership that had been rebranded as a one-man show. By the end of the first week, things were different. No more, "Can you grab my charger?" No more, "Can you run out and pick up oat milk?" No more prepped lunches. No warm towel laid out on the rack when she showered. No little notes on the mirror. She didn't notice at first, but patterns die loud. She came home Thursday evening, dumped her purse on the couch, and frowned. "You didn't make dinner?" "Nope." "You always make dinner on Thursdays." "I didn't feel like it today." Her jaw tightened. "Okay, well, are you planning to order something?" "Already ate," I said, grabbing my keys. "There's leftovers in the fridge if you want." There weren't. Day by day, she started seeing the reality she created. Not out of cruelty, but out of carelessness. Her once predictable world became uncertain. She ran out of gas one morning because I didn't remind her like I used to. She texted, "Can you swing by CVS and grab cold medicine?" I replied, "I'm not really in the mood to go out right now. Maybe later, if I feel like it." Same tone, same indifference. The very phrases she had used on me for months were now mirroring back, and they landed harder than I expected. The first time she looked at me like I was a stranger wasn't during a fight. It was the night she coughed all through dinner and looked pale as a ghost. She lay on the couch under a blanket and asked softly, "Can you bring me some tea?" I met her eyes. "I think there's some in the cabinet, if you feel like getting up." She blinked, then blinked again. "Reed, I'm sick." I nodded. "That sounds like a you problem." Her mouth parted slightly, shocked, and in that moment, I saw it. Not just hurt, recognition. The realization that I wasn't playing her game. I was beating her at it. She didn't say much the next day, moved around the house like she was afraid of triggering something she couldn't name, but I wasn't angry, I wasn't cold, I was liberated. She had declared herself exempt from the duties of being a partner, and I had simply followed her lead. By the second week, the tension in the air was thick enough to chew. Sloane was clearly trying to make sense of what was happening, but she didn't dare ask directly. That would mean acknowledging that something had changed, something she'd started. She sat on the couch one evening, legs folded under her, scrolling on her phone while I sat across from her, reading. "You've been distant lately," she said, not looking up. "Have I?" I didn't even glance away from the page. "Yeah, you're acting weird. I'm acting like you." I turned the page slowly. "Isn't that what we're doing now? No obligations, no expectations, just personal comfort, right?" She stared at me. There was a flicker of something behind her eyes. Confusion, maybe, or fear, but she covered it fast. "You're twisting what I said. I'm living what you said." I stood up and walked into the kitchen. Behind me, she sat in silence. There were little tests every day. She would sigh loudly when folding laundry, glancing my way to see if I'd offer help. I didn't. She would complain about how cold the upstairs bathroom was. I shrugged. She'd drop hints about dinner, about errands, about feeling off. I gave her exactly what she had given me. Polite indifference. No malice, no attitude, just distance. Then came the night that sealed it. Sloane came home with a bag of takeout and 2 drinks. "I picked up Thai," she said, setting the food on the table. "I figured we could eat and maybe watch that show you like." I looked at the food, looked at her. "Thanks, but I already ate." Her face dropped just a fraction of an inch. "Oh, well, there's plenty." "I'm full," I said, "but I hope you enjoy it." She sat down, eating alone in the quiet. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't sit across from her. I poured myself a whiskey and went to the back patio. She was trying, maybe, but it was too late for casual gestures. A few days later, she tried conversation again. "Reed, can we talk?" I looked up from my laptop. "Sure. I feel like you're being cold on purpose." "I'm being consistent," I said. "You set the tone. I'm just harmonizing." She crossed her arms, already growing defensive. "This isn't fair." Neither was being in a marriage where only one person shows up. "I never asked you to." "Exactly," I cut her off. "You never asked. You just assumed I'd keep giving even when you stopped caring. And then, when I finally ask for a little back, just the basics, you tell me it's not your job." Silence. I watched her chest rise and fall. She wasn't ready to admit it. Not yet. Her pride was still louder than her regret. So I let her drown in that silence. The next test was financial. She made a large online order. Home decor, spa items, clothes. Easily over $800. She didn't mention it, didn't ask, just did it. When I brought it up, she raised a brow. "It's my money. I don't owe you an explanation." I nodded slowly. "You're right. Absolutely." That night, I opened a new account and rerouted my paycheck. The next morning, she noticed. "Hey, why didn't your direct deposit hit the joint account?" "Oh," I said, chewing toast. "I moved it. Figured I should handle my money independently. Like you said." She went pale. "You can't just do that." "Why not?" "You did." Her jaw clenched. "That's not the same." "Why? Because it affects you now?" She didn't answer. Later that day, I emailed her a spreadsheet. Itemized monthly expenses, each now split 50-50. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance. There was no message attached, just the numbers. She didn't say a word that evening. But the real breaking point, her birthday. It arrived like a slow-moving storm, and I let it hit. For the past 6 years, I'd gone out of my way to make her birthday special. Gifts wrapped days in advance, reservations booked weeks before, handwritten cards, candles, bubble baths, playlists. This year, I got up, made 1 cup of coffee, took a shower, got dressed, no cake, no flowers, no music, no ceremony. Sloane stayed in bed longer than usual, waiting. Finally, she came downstairs wearing the sweater I'd bought her last year. "So," she said carefully, "what's the plan for today?" I looked at her like she asked if we had milk in the fridge. "Plan? It's my birthday." "Oh, right. Well, happy birthday." The pause that followed could have cracked glass. "That's it?" she said, her voice already rising. I set my mug down, looked her in the eyes. "Tell me something, Sloane. Why would I feel obligated to make today special when you've made it clear that your partner's needs aren't your responsibility?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. "This is different," she said weakly. "How?" "Because birthdays are special. So was every night I asked for connection and got brushed off. So was every morning I made you coffee. Every time I held space for you while you gave me nothing. But none of that counted, did it?" She stared at me, the color draining from her face. I stood up, grabbed my keys. "There's leftovers in the fridge," I said. "Help yourself." And I walked out. 2 days after the birthday blackout, Sloane changed tactics completely. Gone was the cold detachment and philosophical arrogance. In its place, sighs, sad glances, teary eyes. She started moving around the house like she was the wounded one. I'd walk into a room, and she'd pause whatever she was doing, slowly look over as if waiting for me to ask, "What's wrong?" I didn't. She tried harder. Crying, hiccuped sobs, pauses in the middle of folding laundry like her world had just crumbled. But I didn't take the bait. One evening, I was reading on the couch when she appeared in the doorway, tears streaming down her face with perfect timing. "I don't understand what happened to us, Reed." I turned a page. "We used to be so happy," she added. I looked up at her. "Were we?" "I remember you being happy," I said. "I remember me working hard to keep you happy. But us being happy together? That I don't remember." She flinched. That wasn't the line she expected. "You've changed," she whispered. "You're not the man I married." "No," I nodded. "The man you married thought love meant doing everything for someone who gave back nothing. He's gone." When tears didn't work, she called in reinforcements. First came her sister Taryn. She called me at work. "Reed, what are you doing? Sloane's a mess. You're scaring her." She wasn't scared when she dismissed me for 6 months straight. "She says you've gone cold, you don't care anymore." I learned it from her. "It's different." "How?" Silence. She didn't have an answer. No one ever does. Then her mother showed up. Knocked on our door like she was delivering a court summons. "Reed, I raised my daughter to expect partnership in a marriage. Then maybe remind her what partnership means. She's hurting." So was I. Difference is, nobody came knocking when I was dying quietly in my own home. She glared at me like she wanted to say something righteous, but couldn't find the words. She left with a huff and a, "We'll talk about this again." We didn't. The funniest was our neighbor, John. He caught me taking out the trash and said, "Marriage takes work, man." Compromise. "I agree," I said. "Tell that to someone who stopped showing up to the job." He nodded awkwardly and ducked back inside. The hypocrisy was blinding. All these people talking about love, about understanding, about give and take. Where were they when I needed it? Where were the phone calls when I sat in silence across from a woman who scrolled through Instagram while I begged for connection? The truth was simple. It wasn't about right or wrong. It was about convenience. It was easier to paint me as the villain than to admit that Sloane had created this mess. The pressure campaign hit its peak a week later. She walked into the kitchen and tossed a receipt on the counter. A large purchase she'd made. Furniture, decor. She looked at me with folded arms, like she was testing how far she could push. I didn't think I needed to ask your permission to buy something for the house. You don't, I said calmly. She looked surprised. I just hope you didn't expect me to pay for it. Excuse me? You made the decision. It's your item. And since we're operating independently now, well, I figured you'd want to cover it yourself. That's ridiculous, Reed. We're married, I smiled. And yet, you said it wasn't your duty to share, so I'm just extending the same courtesy. That night, I moved the rest of my finances to a private account. Next morning, she discovered it. Where's the money, Reed? My money? In my account. You can't do that. Why not? It's my paycheck. We have bills, which I've already divided. You'll find a spreadsheet in your email. She opened it. Gas, power, rent, food, insurance, all split 50-50, every last cent accounted for. Her voice shook. This isn't how marriage works. According to you, this is exactly how it works. Two independent adults sharing space, no one obligated to anyone else. She stood there frozen. The financial comfort she had relied on for years, gone. That night, she tried something new. She came to bed in lingerie I hadn't seen in over a year. Soft music played, candles, lip gloss, all the visual cues of affection. She slid under the sheets beside me, traced her fingers along my chest. I was thinking, maybe we could reconnect tonight. I didn't move. I'm not really in the mood, I said flatly. Reed, I'm trying. Are you? Or are you just uncomfortable now that the benefits dried up? She didn't answer. Try harder, I said, and turned away. Her last weapon was the nuclear one. Divorce. A week later, she stood in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, face stern. If this is how you want to live, maybe we should get divorced. I looked up from my laptop where I was paying bills. Okay, she blinked. Okay? Yes, if that's your decision. You don't care? Sloan, I said calmly, you emotionally left this marriage months ago. I just stopped pretending you hadn't. She stood still, defeated. Her big dramatic play landed with a whisper. That night she packed a bag and said she was going to her sister's for a few days. To think, she said. Take your time, I replied. Let me know if you need help carrying the bag. I watched her drive away without a single pang of regret, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. 3 days later, the door creaked open just after 10 a.m. I was in my usual spot, reading in the living room, feet up, coffee in hand, the soft sound of a blues guitar playing from my speaker. Sloan walked in quietly. No suitcase slam, no dramatic sigh, no mascara-streaked cheeks, just silence. I looked up, nodded once. Hey, she said back. And that was it. No hug, no apology, no confrontation, just the mutual understanding of a shared space, nothing more. She went upstairs. I didn't follow. That night she tried to initiate a conversation. We need to talk, she said. About what? About us. About this. I closed my book and set it on the table. She sat across from me, shoulders tense, eyes darting, unsure. She looked smaller, like something had been peeled away. I think I understand now, she said quietly. What you were trying to show me. I didn't nod. I didn't lean forward. And what's that? That marriage has to go both ways. That I can't expect you to care about me if I don't care about you. It was a start, but I wasn't moved. Words were cheap currency in this house now. That's a nice theory, I said. But theories are easy. Actions are hard. She swallowed. Her lip quivered just a little. I want to fix this, she said. Fix what? I asked. She blinked. Our marriage. Or just your discomfort with the consequences of your choices? Silence. The marriage? She said after a beat. I want to fix our marriage. That's interesting, I said, leaning back. Because a few months ago you made it very clear that our marriage wasn't broken at all. You liked it just fine, when I was giving and you were taking. I was wrong. About what specifically? This was the real test. Apologies mean nothing unless you can name the crime. She took a deep breath. I took you for granted. I treated your efforts like they were automatic. I dismissed your needs as complaints. I created a double standard where I got to be selfish and still expected you to be supportive. I nodded slowly. Not bad, not perfect, but honest. So, what are you proposing? I asked. That we go back. Wrong answer. Back to what? Back to when I bent over backwards and you barely looked up? Back to me planning your birthdays while you couldn't remember mine? Back to me cooking for two and eating alone? Back to when we were happy. We? I raised a brow. I wasn't happy, Sloane. I was tolerating. I was dying slowly while smiling on cue. That hit. She sat still, swallowing hard. Then what do you want? She asked. I leaned forward. I want a real marriage, a partnership, one where both people contribute, where both people consider each other, where no one gets to declare themselves exempt from effort. I can do that. Can you? Because it means losing the throne. It means your needs don't outrank mine anymore. It means when you're tired, it doesn't automatically mean I serve in silence. She nodded, slowly, thoughtfully. I could see her processing. This wasn't a performance. She was recalculating. How do we start? She asked. I smiled coldly. We don't. You start. You broke this. You fix it. I'm not going to meet you halfway and pretend this was equal damage. The next day, she woke up before me. By the time I came downstairs, there were 2 cups of coffee on the table. She didn't say anything about it, just slid one toward me and went about her morning. She made lunch, asked about my day, actually listened when I answered. She didn't flinch when I took time for myself. She didn't pout when I didn't offer help. She asked if I wanted to go for a walk that evening. I said I wasn't sure. She said, "Let me know if you feel like it," and left it at that. Interesting. A few nights later, she put on an old hoodie and suggested we rewatch a series we used to love. I sat beside her, not touching, not speaking much, and she didn't push. She just watched with me. Later, she put away both our dishes. Still no speeches, no requests for forgiveness, just quiet effort. I noticed. I didn't reward her, but I noticed. The real test came 3 weeks later. She came home from work, exhausted, irritated, stressed. She barely said hello, threw her bag on the counter, flopped on the couch. Old Sloane would have disappeared emotionally for the night. Old Sloane would have expected me to adjust to her bad mood. This time she caught herself. She took a breath, walked over, sat next to me. "I had a rough day," she said, "but that's not your fault. I'm sorry if I came off cold." Then she leaned over and kissed my shoulder, not for show, not with expectation, just presence. That's when I started to believe the change might be real. 6 months later, we had something resembling a marriage. Not perfect, not poetic, but mutual. And she never again said that thing. "It's not my duty to fulfill your desires." Because now she knew. If marriage isn't about mutual duty, it isn't marriage at all. It's 2 people using each other, until one finally stops playing. Some people change because they've grown. Others change because they're losing what they thought was guaranteed. I still don't know which one it was for Sloane, but I didn't need to know, because I wasn't changing back. She didn't ask me to. There were no speeches, no "let's forget the past," no attempts to paint over the cracks. Instead, there were acts, quiet ones, daily ones. She started keeping track of the bills, taking initiative, saying thank you for the first time in years, not out of politeness but from real recognition. She called her sister less. She stopped triangulating the emotions in the room through third-party advice. She stopped treating our marriage like a power structure and started treating it like a shared mission. And most importantly, she stopped assuming I'd stay. That's when I knew she finally understood. We went out to dinner one Friday. She picked the place, made the reservation, dressed up. And when I opened the car door for her, she looked at me like she didn't quite know what to expect anymore. "You look nice," she said. "So do you. I'm glad we're doing this." "Me too." She smiled, and I didn't smile back. Not to be cruel, but because smiles should be earned. And we weren't there yet. Later that night, sitting across from her over half-eaten pasta, she reached out across the table and said, "I really do love you, Reed." I met her eyes. "Then love me like a partner," I said, "not a safety net." She nodded slowly, hand pulling back. It wasn't the moment she expected, but it was the moment she needed. Here's the truth I live by now. I don't beg for respect. I don't perform for affection. I don't participate in a marriage where love is a one-way transaction disguised as romance. Sloane taught me something, unintentionally. She taught me what happens when you show someone their happiness doesn't matter. They believe you, and then they stop centering you in their world. So if you're wondering how this ends, the answer is, it doesn't. Not in some ribbon-wrapped resolution, not in a kiss under soft lighting. It goes on, day by day, choice by choice. And every day I make one simple decision. If she shows up, I show up. If she slips, I step back. Because I am no longer the man who gives endlessly just to be ignored. I am the man who knows his worth and protects it. Sloane never again tried to reframe marriage as an optional service. Because she'd learned, you can't treat someone like a servant and expect the loyalty of a king. And I became the man I should have been from the start. Not the nice guy, not the fixer, not the emotional donor, but the one who demands respect as the entry fee. The one who never again stays where love is rationed. So yeah, she rewrote the rules, but I became the better player. And in the end, she thanked me for it. Because a woman may think she wants a man who tolerates being ignored. But what she really wants is a man who looks her in the eyes and says, "If you don't show up for this marriage, don't expect to find me standing here waiting."